Nobody expected it to end like this. 1 month earlier, Elena Rybakina had walked off the court in Rome with a straight-sets victory over Alexandra Eala, and almost everyone watching assumed the story was already finished. The veteran had handled the rising star. The world number 2 had reminded the young challenger exactly how far she still had to climb. It was clean, clinical, predictable. The kind of result that disappears into the endless rhythm of a tennis season. Then Berlin happened, and suddenly, the entire tennis world was talking about Alexandra Eala, like she had just kicked down the door to the sport's elite level with her bare hands. Because this wasn't just an upset. This was a transformation happening in real time. From 4-1 down against one of the most feared players in women's tennis, on the surface, where that player is most dangerous, in front of a crowd that had already started preparing for the expected ending, Eala didn't just survive. She rewrote the entire script. And what she did after match point made the moment feel even bigger than the scoreboard itself. This is the story of how a painful loss in Rome became the foundation for one of the most shocking comebacks of the grass court season, and why tennis fans everywhere suddenly believe Alexandra Eala may have arrived for real. To understand why this victory hits so hard, you first have to understand who Alexandra Eala was before Berlin and what kind of mountain she was standing across from. Eala is 21 years old, born in the Philippines, a country that has spent decades waiting for a player capable of breaking through on the global tennis stage. Filipino tennis history has always existed on the edges of the sport. Occasional flashes, small moments, talented athletes who never quite managed to force the world to pay attention consistently. Eala started changing that quietly long before most casual fans even knew her name. She developed through Rafael Nadal's academy system, sharpened her game in Europe, fought through lower-level tournaments, endured the endless grind that defines professional tennis outside the spotlight. While bigger stars collected headlines and endorsements, Eala was building herself point by point on smaller courts that rarely made television. And slowly, the results started appearing. She beat Madison Keys. Then she beat Coco Gauff. Then she shocked the sport by taking down Iga Swiatek. Those aren't random wins. Those are victories over players who, on the right day, can look almost unbeatable. But here's the difficult thing about being known as a giant killer in tennis. One massive upset does not automatically make the sport trust you. Tennis respects consistency more than flashes. You can beat a top player once and still spend months hearing questions about whether it was sustainable, whether it was luck, whether you can do it again when expectations rise and pressure changes shape. That was the strange space Eala occupied heading into the 2026 grass season. Dangerous? Absolutely. Talented? Without question. Established among the elite? Not yet. Her ranking sat around world number 35. High enough to matter. Low enough that the very top players still entered matches against her believing they controlled the terms of the battle. And then there was Elena Rybakina. If Eala represented potential, Rybakina represented certainty. Everything about Rybakina's game feels engineered for grass courts. Her serve is one of the most devastating weapons in women's tennis. Flat, precise, relentless. The kind of serve that doesn't just win points, it crushes momentum before rallies even begin. She's already a Wimbledon champion, already an Australian Open champion, already a player who has proven she can dominate on the biggest stages in the sport. By 2026, Rybakina wasn't just respected. She was feared. Earlier that season, she had stormed through the Australian Open draw and defeated Aryna Sabalenka to capture another major title, reinforcing what many already believed. When healthy and locked in, she was one of the 2 or 3 most dangerous women alive in tennis. So when the Berlin draw paired Eala and Rybakina together again, most fans reacted the same way. Interesting matchup, but probably the same result. Because these two had already played earlier in the season, and the memory of that first meeting still hung over everything.
Rome.
The Italian clay. Third round of the Internazionale BNL d'Italia. At first glance, it had looked like a valuable learning experience for Eala. She had earned solid wins to reach that stage. She had competed well on a surface that historically didn't suit her game as naturally as grass or hard courts. But once Rybakina stepped onto the court, The difference between promising challenger and established superstar became painfully visible. Rybakina won the first set 6-4, then closed the second 6-3. No dramatic collapse, no controversy, no comeback, just control. The kind of match where the better player never really looks threatened. And even though reaching the third round in Rome represented progress for Eala statistically, sports don't always allow athletes to emotionally celebrate progress when the ending still feels definitive. Fans remembered the final scoreline. Analysts remembered the gap in composure during big moments. And deep down, Eala herself probably remembered exactly how it felt standing across from a player who seemed capable of controlling the match whenever she wanted. That's the difficult part about losing to greatness in tennis. The scoreboard leaves scars. Every rally becomes information. Every missed opportunity gets stored somewhere in your mind. Players carry those memories into rematches whether they admit it publicly or not. Rome became a verdict, not permanent, but real. And every great sports comeback begins with a verdict that someone eventually overturns. The weeks after Rome weren't magically perfect for Eala either. She didn't immediately explode into dominance. She lost early at Queen's Club. Her form looked uneven. If you only scanned results quickly, you might have concluded she was still hovering in that frustrating middle ground between dangerous prospect and genuine contender. Then Berlin entered the picture. And even getting into the tournament required a wild card. That matters more than people realize. Wild cards in tennis can feel complicated. They are opportunities, yes, but they also quietly remind players that their ranking alone wasn't enough to guarantee entry. Some athletes treat that like pressure. Others treat it like fuel. Eala turned it into fuel immediately. Her first-round opponent was Donna Vekic, fresh off a Queen's Club title and playing some of the best grass-court tennis of her career. It was exactly the kind of opening round matchup that can crush momentum before a tournament even begins. Instead, Eala survived it, barely at times, brilliantly when it mattered most. She lost momentum early, fought back to steal the first set 7-5, then faced triple break point while serving for the match in the second. 3 chances for Vekic to completely flip the match. 3 moments where pressure could have swallowed a younger player. Eala saved all of them, then closed the match with fearless serving. Afterward, she said something that sounded simple at the time but became incredibly important later. "She's fighting back," Eala said, "but I'm also a fighter." At that moment, nobody knew how prophetic those words would become. Because waiting for her next was Elena Rybakina again. The rematch. The world number 2. The woman who had dismissed her in Rome weeks earlier. The Australian Open champion. The best server in women's tennis. And if you were trying to predict the outcome logically, everything still pointed toward Rybakina. Grass courts amplify power. Grass rewards dominant serving. Grass shortens rallies and increases pressure on return games. In theory, this should have made Rybakina even harder to beat than she had been in Rome. What nobody fully understood yet was how much Eala had changed between those 2 matches. Not physically, mentally. That's the hidden evolution in elite sports that statistics struggle to capture. Confidence gained under pressure becomes invisible armor. Surviving difficult moments changes how athletes see themselves. And Eala walked into Berlin carrying far more belief than she had in Rome. Thursday, June 18th, Steffi Graf Stadion. Round of 16. The match began exactly the way skeptics expected. Rybakina exploded out of the gates. Her serve looked untouchable early. Aces flying. Quick holds. Constant scoreboard pressure. Within minutes, she led 4-1. And honestly, that scoreline felt familiar. It felt like Rome again. A rising player overwhelmed by a top 2 superstar. A crowd beginning to settle into acceptance that the favorite was simply too powerful. If you stopped watching there, you would have assumed you already knew the ending. But this is where everything changed. Eala refused to panic. That sounds simple when people say it afterward, but in professional tennis, it's one of the rarest skills in the world. Because panic in tennis is subtle. It shows up in rush forehands, in passive returning, in trying to hit winners too early because you feel the match slipping away. Instead of unraveling, Eala started competing harder. Point by point, Return by return. She extended rallies, forced Rybakina to play extra shots, made the world number 2 uncomfortable in ways she hadn't been in Rome. The 4-1 lead disappeared. Suddenly it was 4-all. Then Rybakina surged again, reaching 5-4 and positioning herself to close the set. And that's when Eala delivered the stretch of tennis that changed the entire match. She won 3 straight games against the best server on tour, on grass, under maximum pressure. The set ended 7-5 for Eala, and the stadium atmosphere changed instantly. Because upsets feel impossible right until the moment belief spreads through the crowd all at once. Now people started leaning forward. Now they started wondering, could this actually happen? The second set became less about surprise and more about nerve. Rybakina still had power, still had weapons, still had experience. But the emotional balance of the match had shifted. And Eala played like someone who finally understood she belonged there. At 4-2, she grabbed control. At 5-4, she served for the biggest win of her season. And when Rybakina's final backhand sailed long, Eala erupted. Pure emotion, pure disbelief, pure release. Final score, 7-5, 6-4. 1 hour and 32 minutes. The world number 2 was out. But what happened next is the moment that pushed this story beyond tennis. Before the post-match interview even properly began, Eala grabbed her phone and called her father. Right there on court, in front of the cameras, in front of the crowd. No carefully constructed media moment. No rehearsed celebration. Just a 21-year-old overwhelmed by what she had just done. "I called my dad," she said afterward, laughing and shaking almost simultaneously. "We were just screaming." That clip exploded online within minutes. And the reason it resonated so deeply had nothing to do with rankings. It felt real. Modern sports can sometimes feel overly polished. Athletes are media-trained early. Interviews become predictable. Emotional moments get filtered through branding and caution. Eala's reaction shattered through all of that. She looked stunned by her own achievement. And fans connected to that instantly. Because underneath all the statistics and rankings, sports are still about emotion. About seeing someone experience a life-changing moment in real time. That authenticity made people fall even harder for her story. Then came another moment that caught attention. Asked about Rybakina afterward, Eala referred to her as the one to beat. And something about the way she said it sounded different than it would have weeks earlier. Not intimidated, not hopeful, certain. Like a player who had mentally crossed an invisible line. That's what Berlin really represented. Not just an upset, a psychological breakthrough. The version of Alexandra Eala, who lost in Rome, walked onto the court wondering whether she truly belonged among the best players in the world. The version who walked off the court in Berlin already knew the answer. And that distinction changes everything. Because the scary part for the rest of the tour is this. Players rarely regress after weeks like this. They evolve. Belief is one of the most dangerous weapons in elite sports because once an athlete genuinely experiences success against greatness, fear starts disappearing. And fearless players become incredibly difficult to contain. This victory wasn't random either. That matters. If Berlin had been Eala's first major upset ever, maybe people could dismiss it as temporary magic. But it wasn't. She already owned wins over Swiatek, Goff, and Keys. She had already built an 8-1 grass court record that season. She had already captured a title in Birmingham. This was her 5th career victory over a top 10 opponent. At some point, repeated success against elite players stops being surprising and starts becoming identity. That's the threshold Eala may have crossed in Berlin. And if you compare Rome to Berlin carefully, the most important difference wasn't technical. It was emotional resilience. In Rome, pressure tilted toward Rybakina and stayed there. In Berlin, pressure tilted back and forth, and Eala no longer looked overwhelmed by it. Down 4-1, she didn't collapse. Serving under pressure, she didn't tighten up. Facing one of the sport's most intimidating players, she didn't shrink. That transformation is what truly terrified tennis fans watching. Because technique can improve slowly. But confidence breakthroughs can change careers overnight. Suddenly, conversations around Eala started sounding different. Not future talent, present danger, not exciting prospect, legitimate threat. And the timing couldn't be bigger, because Wimbledon is approaching fast. The surface where Rybakina once became champion. The surface where Eala now suddenly looks capable of causing chaos. Think about how different opponents will see her now compared to a few months ago. Before Berlin, top players could still view Alexandra Eala as dangerous, but manageable. Now they see the player who came back from 4-1 down to beat the Australian Open champion in straight sets. The player who has beaten multiple Grand Slam-level opponents already. The player who no longer seems intimidated by rankings or reputations. That changes scouting reports. That changes preparation. That changes belief on both sides of the net. And, maybe most importantly, it changes how Eala sees herself. That's why this story matters beyond one upset. Rome gave her the blueprint. Berlin proved she could execute it. The loss became information. The information became growth. And the growth became one of the biggest wins of her career. Tennis history is filled with moments where future stars announce themselves before they fully arrive. Sometimes it's not winning a title that changes perception. Sometimes it's the way a player defeats someone the world thought was untouchable. Berlin felt like one of those moments. The night Alexandra Eala stopped looking like a promising outsider and started looking like someone who could genuinely belong near the center of women's tennis for years to come. And maybe the most exciting part is this. She's still learning, still evolving, still discovering how good she can become. Which means the version of Alexandra Eala that stunned Berlin may not even be the final version yet. That's what has the tennis world paying such close attention tonight. Because 1 month ago, Elena Rybakina beat Alexandra Eala, and everyone assumed the story was over. Now, after Berlin, it feels like the story may have only just begun.